Hi, my name is Marcy. I'm 62 years old and I've just been left the Watchtower Organisation for about 18 months. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses for over 30 years and a regular pioneer for 10 of those years. I was a very, very zealous Jehovah's Witness and believed everything that they told me, more or less. There were some things that I wasn't quite sure about, but I went along with it and did everything that was asked of me during those 30 years. So I'd like to explain to you why I've left this organisation and why I no longer believe that it is God's organisation on earth today. So I was contacted back in the 1980s on the door-to-door ministry. I was contacted by two Jehovah's Witnesses. One of them was a regular pioneer. And I'd been reading the Bible myself for a few weeks. And I'd come to discover that what I learned at church wasn't quite in harmony with what I was reading in the Bible. And it was a time when there was a lot of famine and a lot of war going on in the news, and I was very concerned about these things. And I did believe that we were living in the last days, so I was a prime candidate really for when they knocked on my door, and I asked them about the last days, and they told me about the paradise earth, and that was very appealing to me. And so I started studying with them, and over a period of 5 years, on and off, I studied with different Jehovah's Witnesses, finally becoming baptised early 1990s. So I've been in there ever since. My friends are in there. Fortunately, my family never took to it. My daughter and my son were brought up in it from being small, but both left in their early 20s. So fortunately for me, I've not got any family in my brothers and sisters. None of them accepted the message, and I'm just so grateful that they never did. But I did, and I was full on in it, and I wouldn't listen to anything anybody said against it. So why did I leave? Well, I started waking up during the COVID-19 situation when we were at home. I'd done a lot of research into the experimental health products, shall we call it, and I was very against having that as part, because I could see that it was part of the New World Order UN agenda. So I really, really didn't want to have this experimental health product put into my body. And I believed that God would make it very apparent that we shouldn't have it. But instead of seeing that from the platform, I started seeing the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses pushing and promoting the experimental product onto the congregations by saying that 80%, 90%, 99% of the Bethel family and the elders and the governing body had now had the experimental product. And I saw people that were, who I knew, that were very against getting the experimental product, changed their mind because they believed that God had directed the governing body to tell them to take it. So although they didn't want to take it, they were taking it because of the talk that had been given at the Kingdom Hall, saying if information is given that seems to be strange or against what you think's right, you must go along with it because that is the direction that Jehovah's giving us. And so I felt isolated because I was adamant that I wasn't going to take it. So I started doing research while I was at home on the Zoom into the organisation, and boy, what a rabbit hole did I go down. I've always been a researcher, I'm an author, I've researched many things, including 9/11, the Titanic disaster, and I've also extensively studied the Kennedy assassination, and I've written a book about it. So I'm used to doing research, and I'm used to doing deep research, but I never thought about applying that to studying the Watchtower Organisation. And when I started to do this, I found myself going down a rabbit hole that went deep. And I found that I just could not remain part of that religion and be in a good conscience with my faith in God. And so I stopped attending the meetings. I've not been anywhere. I've been on the Zoom. I became PMO, where I would be on the Zoom with the camera off and the sound off, so it looked like I was at the meeting and I wasn't actually listening. And I got away with this for quite a long time because I also work full time in the healthcare industry and was very busy at work, and so that became another excuse where I could say to people, I'm just working, we're so busy with the COVID and everything else. And so I managed to fade out of it, and as I say, I've not been for a long time. So some of the things that I found out, what really got me against the organisation, one of the first things was the fact that they joined the United Nations and had been part of it for 9 years as a non-governmental organisation. And what I did find out is that as soon as it was exposed by the Guardian newspaper, the Watchtower cancelled their membership. But by then, the UN had been inundated with letters from witnesses who wanted to know whether it was true or not that the Watchtower had been part of it. And in the end, they put a statement on the UN website, which you can find if you go to the UN website. You can find this statement about the membership, because the governing body said that they only joined to use the library of the UN, and that's the only reason that they joined. But the UN made it very clear that anybody can use the UN library, and you don't need to join the UN to do so. What they did put up there was the criteria for being a non-governmental organisational member of the UN, and part of that is that you have to agree with and promote UN ideals through your media outlets. So the Watchtower would have to promote UN goals and ideals through the Watchtower and Awake. And what I knew is, from when I came into the truth, as they used to call it, I'll call it the organisation. When I became a member of the organisation, I was taught in the Revelation Climax book and the Watchtowers back in the day, in the 1990s, that the UN was the wild beast of Revelation, and that it was an evil organisation. The magazines were very against the United Nations. So I was quite shocked to see a softening of it and them promoting it in a favourable light, and I couldn't understand why this was. It just didn't make any sense to me as I saw the narrative change. But obviously, when I found out that they joined the United Nations and had agreed to promote its ideals through the Watchtower and Awake, I could clearly understand why I was seeing what I was seeing. And so when I found out this, that was pretty much game over for me, because the Bible clearly tells you not to be part of the world. And we as witnesses were told that we couldn't be part of the world. We weren't allowed to vote or have any kind of affiliation with politics, yet we find the governing body had signed themselves up with the United Nations and were promoting it through the Watchtower and away without the knowledge of the congregations. I think it was an absolute disgrace, and I was furious when I found this out. So that's one of the things that really, really rocked my um, faith in the organisation. And I found out many, many other things, which I will talk to you about in subsequent videos. But for now, this is the one thing that woke me up and started the exit process. So I'm happy to have been able to talk to you today. I ask you to look into this United Nations thing if you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and ask yourself, is it possible to be part of the United Nations and not be part of the world as Jesus Christ asked us not to be? So until the next video, thank you for listening.